I'm Joanna Garzilli. This is Life Stories. Today, my guest is Elana Horwich, author of Meal and a Spiel. Elana, welcome to Life Stories.
Thanks, Joanna. I'm so happy to be here.
And we're going to get into your book and all the history, sort of how that came to be.
Yeah.
So take me all the way back to childhood, favorite foods, and where you grew up.
Yeah, so I grew up in Los Angeles, about a mile from the studio in Beverly Hills. Don't hold it against me. And my mother was a Berkeley-educated feminist, and she did not cook. And she did not want her, there's 3 daughters, I'm in the middle of 3 girls. She didn't want us in the kitchen because she thought the kitchen was a weak place for women to be in. She wanted us to be strong, career-minded women when we grew up. So I actually started playing in the kitchen, making snacks. The joke is that it was the only place in the house my mother couldn't find me, and people, and I was hungry. So that's when I first started playing around in the kitchen. Then when I was 20 years old, I had an epiphany when I was in college, in my second year of college, that I needed to go off into the world and really explore life so that I could write about it. And the universe basically just dropped me off into Italy. And there I learned to cook. I mean, I went with my bat mitzvah money. I did not take money from my parents. I went on my own. I worked in bars. And I cooked because that's, 1, what you do in Italy. 2, it's what you do if you don't have spending money. And the food is, I was just so inspired there. That's what everyone was doing. You cook, you go out to eat because it's fun to go out to eat, but you eat at home when you really want to eat a good meal. So I got really curious. I was paying attention to my French roommates, what were they doing, and to my friends' mothers, the Italian mamas, talking to them and finding out. So that's really where I got the base of learning how to cook. That said, I did not come back home to the States after 5 years in Italy and write a cookbook or start a cooking school. That took a long time. I did not know what I wanted my career to be. I went right into teaching because I always felt of myself to be a teacher, and I taught high school history and did some stand-up comedy and was doing body work and really went on a journey.
That's really different. Teaching history and doing stand-up comedy. Were you cracking jokes in class?
Probably. But probably. They're not entirely different because what I was really wanting to do is raise the consciousness of the people that were listening to me. I wanted them to think about things differently. I wanted my high school students to be connected to the world, not just thinking about their day-to-day and what the future might be like, but to think about the future with having a grasp of what's behind them, of having a grasp of history. So I wanted them to be living with a certain level of consciousness. And when I did stand-up comedy, the same thing. I wanted people to look at the world differently. So I actually even brought history into my stand-up. So they're not entirely different. It's actually, for me, was similar. It was just the comedy gave me an excuse to focus on being funny, but I really wanted to.
What do you think it takes to be funny?
People always tell me that I'm funny when I'm not trying to be funny. So that is a really good question. I think it takes looking at things from a very specific point of view and not being scared to say it. Like, what people found funny about me was my angst. So the more I talked about my angst, the stuff that I would never want anyone to know about me, the stuff that I could barely look at myself, you know what I mean? I'm like, am I going to admit this to other people, let alone admit this to myself? That's what was funny. So it's really truth is probably the core of what's funny. They say, I think truth meets timing.
And the truth will set you free, right? All these different truth expressions.
Yeah, the truth will set you free. Yeah, I mean, the first time I did stand-up, after the first night, I literally felt as though I had barfed up an entire other human being inside of me. Like I had let go of a whole weight living in me. It was just like, wow. And I was light and blissed out for a week. I mean, it was like I had just taken the best drug ever. And so, yeah, the truth will set you free.
Was there a time, because it happens to most comedians, when you've gone on stage and it just
sucked?
Yes.
I have to say, so I I never had a show that completely sucked from start to finish, but I had plenty of times that I was like, oh my God, that didn't come out the way that I wanted to. And the way that my brain works, and actually I read Steve Martin's autobiography, and he says the same thing. It's like when you're first starting out, you're thinking about what am I going to say now? How did it just land? And what am I saying next? And those three things are in your head all the time. So I might have just said something that didn't land, and I'm like, oh my God, they think I'm such a loser. But at the same time, I'm trying to remember what my next line is. So yeah, I definitely got off stage plenty of times beating myself up.
So timing was a big component of the difference between being funny and not being funny?
Timing and truth, it's like if I'm trying to say it in a way to make people laugh, it might not be as funny as if I'm just saying it from the guts. And that is another thing that's true about teaching adolescents is you can't lie to them. I can't go into class and be like, hey guys, like let's learn something. It's like I have to be honest with them. No BS. That is what kids respond to, and that is what adolescents respond to. So the more truthful you can be with yourself, the more truthful you are with your voice, the more honest you are inside of yourself, the more people will listen to you, whether you're a high school teacher or a comedian or a cooking teacher.
What was your mum's response or reaction to you embracing cooking and then becoming an influence in the cooking world?
I have to say she was incredibly supportive. First of all, my cooking classes, for the most part, have been taking place in her home. So my parents have a beautiful kitchen that my mother doesn't use. And she's very generous. So she has allowed me to bring hundreds, not thousands of people in her home. And then I've also taught around the country. But, people leave her kitchen and then they see her at times when she makes herself, present. And they've just come out of a 3-hour cooking class where they feel empowered, where they've just had fun. And so they're telling my mother, oh my God, we love your daughter. She's so fabulous. We just learned how to cook. Her food's so great. So she was just getting compliment after compliment about her daughter. And what else does a Jewish mother want than to have other people say that her child is okay?
I can relate to that.
Yeah. So she's been really embraced that.
So you, with your cookbook, you have a mixture of, it's like there's an undertone of sort of Jewish tradition, sort of sprinkled onto Italian.
Yeah.
It's like this fusion.
Yes. The
elements of.
The cookbook the palette is entirely Italian.
Yeah.
Okay. Because also I'm teaching people to become intuitive cooks. So if I were to teach them a little Thai food, a little Italian, a little Indian, a little Mexican, they're not going to understand the basic principles of cooking and really be able to liberate themselves from recipes. So Italian is how I learned to cook. I think it's probably one of the best cuisines in the world, and it's very easy. So that is that. I also do sprinkle, first of all, Jewish humor throughout the whole thing. And it's an Italian cookbook called Meal and Spiel. This is the adventures of a Jewish girl who lived in Italy and now is sharing, what she learned with the world. But I actually did my undergraduate and graduate degree in Italian Jewish studies. I never was really interested in being Jewish. I thought it was like a burden. It meant I had to go to Hebrew school, right? Like had to go to Hebrew school 3 times a week, had to study for bat mitzvah, do all this. It was just work. It was more work on my plate. But when I got to Italy, first my friends thought it was exotic that I was Jewish. And I remember walking through the Jewish ghetto and seeing these Roman columns, beautiful Roman columns still standing there. And having a moment where I was like, wow, these columns are about 2,000 years old. And my people is older than that. Wow. Like there must be something very cool about the Jewish people that I maybe haven't tapped into because we're still around and those gorgeous columns, those people of those gorgeous columns, they're not. So I became very fascinated in Jewish Italian history and culture, and there are a few Jewish Italian recipes in here. And I did put my latkes in here because I just believe in latkes all year round, and they're a fabulous bread-free appetizer. So this is a very balanced book. I tried to have lots of recipes that don't have bread and pastas made with noodles, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought latkes would be a really fun thing to add.
And so what was your journey? Did you start doing recipes and people said, Did it happen, the book come about because people were asking you for the recipes and you thought, well, I have to do a book? Or was this something that really came, it was a drive from within? How did that
It was a drive from within. It was such a drive from within. So I had this epiphany when I was in college, right, that I was going to go off and write about life. I was going to learn about life and write about life. So I held on to that. I didn't know what I was going to write about. Who am I to even write about life? I didn't know anything. When I started doing this cooking school, which came literally because people were asking me to teach them to cook, I had to come up with a name for the cooking school. So I was like, what's it going to be? I used to read rhyming dictionaries when I was a kid. So I was like, what rhymes with food? Food, mood, blah, blah, blah. Meal. What rhymes with meal? Spiel. Meal into spiel. I was like, oh my God, that is it. That is going to give me the opportunity to write about my musings on life as I have been experiencing them for the past, whatever at this point, 15 years. So I started this blog, and all of my recipes had a spiel before the meal, and I wrote. And I knew from the very beginning that it was going to be a book. It took me 8 years, but it was just growing and, growing in me. And I finally just had to birth this baby out. I mean, it was like, when it came time for me to know that it was I was going to dedicate myself to this book, that was it. Nothing got in my way.
So is conversation then a big part of when people have been in your cooking classes? Because for people who don't know what spiel means, it means to chat.
Right. Well, a spiel it could be a sales pitch. It could be a story. It could be a tirade. So it's like spiel. I don't want to listen to the whole spiel. Just tell me, when are we going to eat? That's the example that we use in the book. So yeah, it comes up. People in my cooking classes, we're in LA, they tend to know what spiel is. But absolutely, I get to tell stories. I want people to start to create their own stories when they cook. I don't want them to just follow the recipes and go ahead and do it. I mean, that's not what we need. What we need is people to put their hearts and soul into the food, and for that to be shared so we really can raise the vibration of our communities and our society at large.
What do you feel about, what would you say to someone who has intimidation of going near the kitchen?
I would say you're not alone. For every class I've taught, I'd say probably at least half of the people are really scared. So you're not alone. Take a breath. One of the great things about cooking, it's not like basketball where you get worse at it with age. You actually get better with age. So start now. You have your whole life to do it. And it's not brain surgery. And it's also not what you're watching on television. They make it look much more complicated on these fancy cooking shows. I'm not teaching French cooking. You don't need to go right into fancy French cooking where eggs need to be puffed up. Italian food is very simple ingredients, good quality ingredients, very simple process. And then also I would say, to grow, you take a risk. So give yourself a chance to play in the kitchen, allow yourself to mess up. And if you do mess up, it's probably still going to be edible.
When people do mess up in the kitchen, why do you think that is? What's a couple of the main reasons?
I think they're honestly not present with it. I mean, it is a form of a meditation. It's kind of meditation that you get to move and eat. What better meditation is that? And even listen to music if you want to. I think they're just trying to get it all done and it said this and it said this and I have to do this and I have to do this. And it's just here, they're in their head. And I am trying to bring people into their bodies, which is why I tell the stories, which is why I make fun of myself all the way through this book, because I want you to let go of that fear and move from your head into your heart and into your body.
So you can really read people's entire psyche energy just from how they approach cooking.
Ken, I mentioned, I used to do body work on people, and that's something that I even use in my cooking classes. I might just find that I put my hand on the small of someone's back or on the middle of their back, just help them take a breath. Yeah. So, yeah, reading the energy of the room, especially when I'm doing cooking classes, is important so that I can.
So it's really a multi-dimensional experience. They're getting some body work, they're getting some comedy, cooking as well, and they get to eat.
Yeah, and they get to eat, yeah. Yeah.
So you're very close with your family. Who are 5 people that are the wind beneath your wings? Was there anyone who within that is a big inspiration for you as a historical figure?
In historical figure in the world or in my life?
In the world. I'm sort of asking you two questions in one. Who's the wind beneath your wings? But I want you to throw a historical figure in there too.
Oh my gosh, the wind beneath my wings. I don't know the answer, right? I don't know if I know the answer to that. I mean, I could tell you about historical figures that have really inspired me. And this will probably take people by surprise. Like, who's your mentor? My mentor is not a cook. My mentor is someone that I look up to. I don't know her, is Meryl Streep. She is the woman that I look up to when I look at the type of woman that I want to be, because she, through her acting, has been able to access all aspects of humanity. If there is a script that she has been given and she doesn't know that aspect of humanity, she goes there and she goes there completely. And that's what I aspire to as well. I want to understand humanity, and I want to go into the depths of humanity, understand, through understanding myself, and bring that back in and share that with others. So,
beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Meryl Streep. Anyone else?
Streep. Oh my gosh, you're totally catching me off guard. Well, I could say one of the cooking inspirations or cookbook inspirations that I really look up to are women like Marcella Hazan, who was an Italian who brought Italian cookbooks to the United States. And she was also a school teacher. She was a science teacher in middle school. So I really look up to her because it gives me, since I started as a school teacher and I'm just getting started. I've got a lot more that I want to offer to the world. I look up to her.
Sounds like you're going to be in movies as well.
Well, I'll put it out there. But yeah, I mean, that would be a dream.
So going forward, legacy, 10, 20 years from now, what is the impact that you have made in the world? What do you imagine? What's that mission?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. Thank you so much for asking me. I want people to see the humanity in each other, which needs to come from seeing the humanity in ourselves. I want people to be more connected to themselves and to be adding love to the world through food. And also 20 years from now, I might not be writing about food anymore. I will probably be writing about or have written about my life's journey of healing, moving through physical ailments, moving through trauma, and I hope to do that in a really creative, inspiring way. And I really hope that in 20 or 30 years, I will have inspired people to be fearless in facing themselves, moving through their own fears, really accessing the true potential of their humanity and of their spirit and of their hearts.
Which leads to my last question. With that core of humanity and moving into the future, right now, today, for someone who is hearing your message, what would you say to them is a way they could be activated in their part to bring more peace, love, connection to humanity? It's like world peace.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very easy, direct answer for that one. Cook. I mean, cook. It is primal. Cooking's not like an extra thing. It is the thing. It is the only way to ensure that you have healthy food going into your body. It is the only way to ensure the energy of the food that is going into your body to rebuild your cells. And it is a fabulous, perfect way to connect with others. So don't see cooking as this extra thing that I can do when I have time. See cooking as like the thing, this primal element to connect yourself to the land and to people and to yourself.
Delicious. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Joanna Garzilli. This is Life Stories. Today, my special guest was Elana Horwich. the author of Meal and a Spiel. I highly recommend that you not only read it, but you also start to cook, put it into practice in your life, and then see the amazing things that are going to happen and the impact that how that will have a ripple effect towards others. So thank you for tuning in. You can also download the Evertalk app to watch all the other fabulous shows at Evertalk TV. Tune in next time.